So last week we spent a lot of time talking about the different types of data, how we have numerical and categorical. This week we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the different ways of collecting that data. Um, so to start out with, we're talking about sampling principles here and strategies. So start out with you have a population. The population is everyone that is in your targeted research. Um, so if you're looking at, I think the book gives the example, the average mercury content in swordfish in the Atlantic Ocean, your population there would be all swordfish in the Atlantic Ocean. From there, we have what we call a sample. A sample is a subset of that population. So maybe you find 60 fish or 60 swordfish from the Atlantic Ocean and you test the mercury in those fish. That would be your sample. So again, we have our population, which is everybody, and then we have our sample, which is a select few from that population. Um, and then from there, we also have what we call a case or an individual case. So the individual case would be the one person um, or the one piece of data from your sample. So again, we have a population broken down into a sample, which is then broken down into cases. Um, One of the things you get in trouble with if you're looking at specific cases is a thing called anecdotal evidence. Anecdotal evidence is based on a few cases. It can be misleading, and it's considered kind of data collected in a haphazard fashion. Um, may be true, may be verifiable, but it also might just be from a couple small examples, such as you went to the casino, you saw somebody spin the roulette table, it landed on 36, so therefore the roulette table always lands on 36, so that's what you're going to bet on. That would be anecdotal evidence. Doesn't always land there. There should be the same probability of it landing anywhere on the roulette wheel. So when you're collecting data, there's a couple different things you want to watch out for. One of the big things you want to look out for is bias or having a biased sample. Um, Having a biased sample is tricky because you can get some bad data from that, or you get data that seems to imply one thing when actually something else is true. One of the basic ways to make sure that you don't get biased data is using what we call a simple random sample, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Um, you can also get what we call a non-response issue. You give out a sample, but only 20% of the surveys you give out actually get filled and returned to you. That might be a non-response issue because maybe the people who filled out your survey were more inclined to because they had strong feelings for it. Um, so definitely looking out for a non-response is important. Also, you can have something what's called non-representative, in which case you didn't get a sample that actually represents the population. So I don't know, maybe you're on college campus and you're trying to find out, do people support putting more money into the dorms, but you only sample people from the dorms. That would be a non-representative because you're not sampling everybody. There's a lot of people who commute to the college. There's a lot of people who take um, online courses, etc. So therefore, the sample you're looking at doesn't actually represent the entire population. You always want to make sure whatever you're sampling does represent that population. And finally, we have what's called a convenience sample. It's where individuals who are easily accessible are more likely to be included in your sample. So again, maybe you're looking at whether or not people support basketball games, and you ask a bunch of people who are walking out of the building whether or not they support basketball games. Well, it turns out the building you're standing in front of is a basketball court or a professional basketball area, so therefore you get a lot of yeses, and you just fallen into a convenience bias because the people you asked were going to say one thing or another based off of they're easy to get to. Um, so yeah, so these are a couple things you definitely want to be looking out for um, when you're sampling from a population. One way you can get samples is through what we call an observational study. So we have observational studies and we have experiments. The big thing in an observational study is that there's no treatment that's been explicitly applied or withheld from any of the people in your study. So you're not actively withholding or applying a treatment. You can use them to show association, but not to show causation. Many times people use an observational study in order to get the data they need to then move on to do an experiment to get the funding for that experiment. One of the reasons you can't use them to show causation is because of what we call a confounding variable, which is also sometimes referred to as a Lurkin variable or a confounder. So a confounding variable is a variable that's out there that you didn't actually account for, essentially. The book is a great example that you look at the use of sunscreen and the use of skin cancer. And you'll find people that use a lot of sunscreen probably also have a higher chance of getting skin cancer. So therefore, you might think that the sunscreen is causing a skin cancer, when in reality, people are using a lot of sunscreen because they're out in the sun, and it's the sun that's causing the skin cancer. So you have this third variable, sun exposure, that's actually causing both of the other variables to increase the use of sunscreen and the skin cancer. In an observational study, there are two types you can have. One is a prospective study, where you're identifying your individuals and you're collecting the information as events unfold. And then we have what we call a retrospective study, where you collect the data after the events have taken place. So a lot of times medical records, etc., have a lot of retrospective studies done with them. All right, so one of the main things is the type of sampling that you're doing. So when you're looking at your projects, you're going to have to identify which type of sampling you are using. And there's four major ones. There's a simple random sample, which we refer to as an SRS, a stratified sample, a cluster sample, and a multi-stage sample. So those are your four major types of sampling, and I'll talk about each of those individually. So in a simple random sample, so you'd have your population, and essentially everybody in the population would have the exact same probability of getting chosen. So depending on how many people there are, like, I don't know, there looks like maybe about 25 here, so each person should have a 1 in 25 chance of being chosen. So you'd randomly choose those people out of your population, and then those people would become your sample. You'd ask them whatever questions or survey you're given. So a simple random sample, everybody in the population has the same probability of being chosen. It's one of the best ways of making sure that you do not have bias in your samples, because again, everybody has the same probability, your extreme cases as well as your in-between cases. The second type of a sample is a stratified sample. So again, you'd have your entire population, but then you divide those into what we call strata. Usually they're chosen so that similar cases are grouped together. And then within each of your strata, you'd use another way of picking people, usually a simple random sample, within each strata to pick out your cases. So again, you'd have your strata, which are your big groups, and then from each group you'd pick out individuals using some sort of simple random sample. The groups, again, usually they have some sort of reason why they're in those groups. And again, those would become your sample. We have a cluster sample, which again, very much like a strata, the very first step you do is you divide them into groups. This time we refer to these groups as clusters. And then what we do, instead of looking at all of the clusters, we randomly pick a couple of those clusters and we sample everybody from those. So unlike a stratified sample where we pick a couple people from each of the strata, in a cluster we pick everybody from a couple of those groups. And then again we look at those people and that becomes our sample. Finally, we have consider a multi-stage. A multi-stage is kind of a hybrid between a cluster and a stratified sample. So again, you'd have groups, but instead of picking out everybody from a couple groups or a couple people from all the groups, you pick out a couple people from some of the groups. So you pick the groups randomly, and then you'd randomly pick the people within the groups. So it kind of is a little bit the best of both worlds with the cluster and the stratified. And then that becomes your sample. So those are the 4 different types of samples you can have. Again, each of them have pros and cons. I'd say the simple random sample is probably the best out of all of them, but again, it can be pretty expensive, whereas some of the other ones you can save time or money using. Again, though, definitely if you have questions as you're doing your reading / watching these videos, make sure you're asking.